Say cheese. Pretty bitch. Anyways, hey thotties. So, decided to react to some scary stories just cause. Why not? It's been a while since I watched these. I think like the last time I watched these type of stuff was probably like the last Halloween. Legit, the last Halloween. And it's almost October, so, well, it just started in September, but, you know, it's almost October. Anyway, usually scary season, spooky season is usually my favorite. I literally vibe the most with it. I love spooky season. It's my favorite. I love it. It gives me like such good vibes. Anyways, let's get into it.
This is a story about me, Teresa, and my best friend Sasha. We were such pretty girls growing up, so the boys were all over us, especially a boy named Aiden Cummings. He grew obsessed with us. We hung out every single weekend, and whenever we did, we always caught him staring in our windows. He was generally a weird kid, and he never had friends, so we felt bad for him.
That was me in high school.
One day, our friends were hanging out, and he asked if he could come. We allowed him because we felt bad. We went to the park, which is a couple of houses away from us. We called it the Green Park. We were there for about an hour before we went back to my house. Everything was going fine, but he was being really suspiciously quiet. We were outside on the trampoline for a while, and he said he had to go to the bathroom, so he went inside my house. After about 30 minutes, we got really concerned, so we went inside to check on him. What we saw is something I will never forget. We saw him watching my hamster blow up in the microwave. He put my hamster in the microwave while we were outside. It was the strangest thing I had ever seen, so I immediately told him to leave my house.
I bet.
I could not call the police because I thought it was a silly thing to do, but I didn't know what to do.
Take
Me
him out
and
the house.
Sasha were having a sleepover. We saw a dude with a creepy mask outside my window. We were insanely annoyed because we clearly didn't want to be friends with them, so we called the police. At that moment, we noticed he was holding my cat by its neck and holding a knife near it. We were horrified. It was perfect timing when we heard the police sirens going off, and he dropped my cat and ran. We didn't hear anything from him for days, until we got notified that his parents were both brutally stabbed to death.
Oof.
Every night I wonder if the police hadn't arrived at that time, if we would still be alive to this day.
Bet not.
Rip my hamster Queenie.
My mom told me
People like that should not be near people. I've been through a lot of weird experiences myself, and I understand exactly how weird that can get.
Hi, my name is Aiden. My mom always wanted a daughter. When she gave birth to me, my father told me that she didn't look that happy at all. She kept trying and trying to get pregnant again, but it never worked. When I was 2, she stopped trying and adopted a girl instead. She named her Ivy. Ivy was just a year older than me, so she was 3 years old. And for a month, everything was okay and my mom was satisfied, until some strange things started happening. My father told me that at night she would hold a knife while standing in front of my door.
Oh, hell no.
He thought that she was sleepwalking and probably had
the whole
some childhood
away.
trauma causing those types of dreams, so he brushed it off. Eventually, she stopped doing it after a few months and we all forgot about it. But when she turned 8, things started to happen again. She would talk to herself in the morning and get very aggressive. I tried to tell my mom several times, but she said it was normal. I was terrified of my sister. One night at 2 a.m., she screamed in a terrifying pitch. My parents rushed to her room and her eyes were bloodshot, and she was scratching her arm aggressively. The following morning, my mom called the doctor about her behavior, and they took her away.
As you
On
should.
my 10th birthday, my sister returned and looked normal.
Demon in my house.
Surprise, my mom said whilst holding her hand. Honestly, I felt happy that I could see her again. We played games and had fun until it was time for me to sleep. I randomly woke up to see my sister next to my bed. She was holding a knife, tearing into my arm.
Throw the whole child away.
Her eyes were wide open, and she had a blood-curdling smile that will never leave my head. I passed out. I woke up in a hospital bed and saw my mom crying next to me. Suddenly, I remembered Ivy and asked my mom where she was, and all she said was, "She's gone."
Good.
I am a 14-year-old.
This is not about my story, but someone from my church, and he wanted to share his experience with anyone else. He's a 32-year-old man, and his pseudonym is Mark. He's a fairly big guy, and this situation took place when he was on his way home from work. He said that he had lost his phone 1 week before this whole situation happened, so he couldn't call and get any help during the story. It was quite late, around 11 p.m. He had finished work and was walking to a taxi stop location, and when he got there, a few people were standing around waiting as well. After about 2 minutes, he noticed that there was a minivan approaching. Usually, minivans are cheaper than taxis, and he felt tired that day, so he decided to take the minivan. He sat on a seat, and there was a young boy seated in the passenger side next to the driver who was collecting the fare. And then, 2 other boys who looked like teenagers also boarded the minivan and sat in the seats in front of him. Once the minivan took off, after about 5 minutes, the boy asked if they would like to drink some Coke. The boys accepted and started drinking. And they also gave it to Mark. Mark was also feeling thirsty, so he took it, but only a
I can feel
sip.
that thing is cursed.
Not much later, he started feeling drowsy. Just before he about laid his head on the seat beside him,
Drugs.
he noticed that those 2 boys were already knocked out. After he laid his head down, he heard noises coming from the back seats.
It done messed up.
2 people were talking in a different language. The car was passing a big signboard that showed Crest Chicken Farm. And then he finally passed out. When he got up, he found himself inside a big shed-like barn, and there were some tools on a big table. He was on the floor, and the other 2 teenage boys were laying next to him. He still felt a bit drowsy, but he managed to get himself up as he was looking for an escape. He saw that the 2 boys were still passed out, so he tried waking them, but they wouldn't budge. As Mark was kind of a big man, he tried to see if he could carry one of them, but it was hard to do because even Mark was having a hard time to stand properly.
Just interested in it.
And then he heard voices. He took a peek from the door, and 3 people were walking toward the big shed, coming from a house on the hill, which was quite close to the shed. Mark panicked and tried to look for another exit. He was looking around the place, and he found one at the end of the shed, luckily. He approached quietly and escaped as fast as he could. At this point, his vision was all blurry, but he managed to find a fence door and unlocked it. He heard the people shouting, but he ignored. He just kept on running. When he finally reached his house, it was early morning, around 5 a.m. His wife was up all night waiting for him and ran out the front door as soon as she saw him. He collapsed and slept for almost the whole day.
Me on the
regular. When he woke up and
regular.
finally got a chance to explain to his wife what had transpired that night, he remembered about the other 2 boys who were still there. Then he contacted the police immediately. He told the police about the road signs and a big billboard for Crest Chicken Farm and other things that he could remember. About 2 weeks after, there was a police report about how they found 2 teenage boys' bodies in a lake and advised that when they examined the bodies, all their organs were missing. Mark just stood in fear. And as the event was too traumatic for him, Mark had to quit a job for a while.
Damn. I would not leave the house again if I went through that shit. I don't know how long this is. It's probably short and sweet. But thank you for your time. I'm just kidding.